It's like that every week.
But they're not allowed to do that. Whaling has been banned, hasn't it? No?
It's regulated, but it's the interpretation of that law. We in Japan do whaling for scientific research reasons, and that's allowed.
But you don't need to kill all these whales for that, do you? Ugh. Maybe just one whale maximum if it's essential.
We know that, but this meat will make a lot of food enthusiasts very happy. It'll sell for a good price. So we cheat.
That's awful. And to think it's a species that's threatened with extinction.
Come on, I want to show you something else. Porpoises. They probably bought them at sea, maybe from Russian fishermen or others.
Porpoise? But everyone knows that Japanese fishing has already destroyed 3/4 of the species.
They'll actually be sold to wholesalers as whale meat. Apparently, there's no difference in taste.
Isn't there anything we can do to stop all this?
Well, a whaling commission did try to ban all this so-called scientific fishing, but Japan threatened to ignore international fishing regulations.
I have already explained to you that this planet is the only one in the solar system which has water and seas. But I think it would be a good idea to go over how all this happened. So... It was hundreds of millions of years, probably more than 1 billion years, before everything settled down and the oceans that in reality fell from the sky came to cover 70% of the surface of our planet.
Why is the sea salty then?
And all those volcanoes were erupting. Wow. So has that all finally come down now? Not at all. You know, there are constant earthquake and volcanic eruptions around the world. On land, yeah, but under the sea?
Under the sea is the same as on land, but these underwater eruptions can cause terrible catastrophic damage. Look at tsunamis. Waves up to 30 meters high, traveling at the speed of a jet plane, hitting and destroying whole population centers. They're caused by undersea volcanic eruptions, or sometimes a tectonic movement.
That's all very interesting, but you still haven't answered my question. Why is seawater salty? No one ever wants to tell me anything.
Watch closely, and then you'll see why. Volcanoes released sulfur dioxide and other toxic gases, as you know. These gases became mixed with water vapor, and then fell as acid rain on the rocks that contain different elements, including sodium. The sea and its waves continually pounded the rocks and ground them down into much smaller pieces, including salt crystals. But to make such a vast amount of water salty took an awful lot of salt and time. As I told you earlier, perhaps 1 billion years. That's an incredibly long time, that is. Of course, our oceans are enormous and very deep. But that's the explanation.
So all that huge amount of salt is just dissolved away in the water. That's a shame, isn't it?
Oh, I'm sure we can find a way of getting some of that salt back, no?
Well, actually, we found a way a long, long time ago. Since prehistoric times, it has been used as an important commercial means of exchange. And nowadays, we can get back as much as we want. We just have to fill salt marshes with seawater and let it evaporate, leaving the salt behind for collection and distribution. You must have seen pictures of this, as it happens all over the world. Haven't you?
But then, how do the salt marshes get filled, huh?
Oh, well, there they are, back from their trip to Japan. Let's see what they have to say.
Hi.
Welcome back.
It's good to see you.
So how was the trip?
Yeah, we're dying to know. Was it dangerous then?
Isn't my brother here?
No, he said he had an interesting report he was working on.
Oh, let them get their breaths back. There's plenty of time for them to tell us.
We really love what you guys are doing. And you can count on our help. Ships that flush their dirty fuel oil at sea, which subsequently destroys coasts, always try to do it some way off, where they actually think that they can't be seen. This one was reported to us as being about 50 nautical miles offshore. We have to catch them red-handed before they leave our jurisdiction. We'll be there in a few minutes. Good point. This is XXOL. We have the offending ship in sight. We're approaching it. It's a tanker about 30,000 tons. A Bahamian flag. It's 42 nautical miles from the coast, 45 degrees northwest. Over to you now. Okay, roger that. 42 nautical miles, 45 degrees northwest. We'll take over from here, on our way. The Coast Guard's rapid response patrol boats left at the same time as us. They were only waiting for us to localize the ship. They'll be here soon.
So at least this polluter's gonna pay this time.
Oh, I don't believe it. Just look at what he's doing. They all do that when they've been seen. They try and get rid of the evidence. But it's way too late for that kind of maneuver.
Oh, look! Over there!
We're done. Those are our guys. We can head back to base. Thank you! We've got them at last!
Just a century ago, there were 250 to 300,000 blue whales just in the Southern Ocean. Splendid creatures of 130 tons or more. Catching these gentle giants was kid stuff. And in more northerly seas, the whalers made the most of it 30 or 40 years ago. The factory ships of Norway alone were butchering 30,000 whales a year, nearly 100 a day. And it's still going on. Because of rapidly diminishing whale numbers, bans and quotas were introduced, but who obeys these rules? A little later, it was revealed that Russian ships had continued whaling, hiding their illicit activities under banks of artificial fog. And it was worth it. The Japanese paid them well for their catches. 80,000 whales were slaughtered like this. So some time was needed before people realized these whales were in danger of extinction.
So how many of these gentle giants are left? Maybe 1,000 or so? That's 3 survivors per 1,000. Efficient slaughter, huh?
So they turned to rorquals, smaller whales weighing 6 or 7 tons. The result was soon apparent. There were 500,000 of these whales. These days, about 20,000 remain. In a few decades, 95% of their magnificent population has disappeared. The Norwegians, the Russians, and the Canadians are still hunting them, despite the fact they're endangered. Even Iceland has started catching them again, on the scientific pretext of studying their diet, an excuse nobody believes. And then tuna fish could also disappear, even though stocks were high in the Mediterranean. Fishing has increased 30-fold since 1900, so it's threatened.
So what can we do? Just speaking out against it isn't enough.
Do you have any ideas? We're pretty unhappy with what we saw, you know. Hey, I have an idea. Let's do the same as Paul Watson.
Paul Watson, eh? Who's he then?
He was a captain of Canadian Coast Guard vessels, and then a Swedish officer. And so, as everyone talked about saving whales but did nothing, he took matters into his own hands. With his men, he took out his ship and rammed whalers in the middle of the night. He sank 8 or 10 of them. Can you believe it? He even blew up factories processing whale oil. And the other guys couldn't say a thing. because they were breaking the law themselves. So how funny's that? That's what we should do.
Or perhaps trying to find a solution that's a little less radical.
It was even him who dyed those baby seals pink. Pink. So that no one could use their fur at all. Ha ha ha. I would have loved to have been there with them. I can see it now.
I really understand why you want to play pirates. If I were your age, I might well join you. Then we could share a jail cell. I think we have to learn to respect the sea, which gives us so much.
Petra told us that up to relatively recently, there were lots of whales. Why was that? Were they hunted then? I mean, they were an easy target.
People, in fact, were terrified of whales in those days and just as scared of the sea.
What? So people didn't fish?
Of course they did, but it wasn't until Roman times that people got on boats to fish.
The Romans? And not the Greeks before them, Maestro?
The Greeks feared the gods of the sea. I'm sure you recall the name Poseidon. This powerful god raged around the oceans. But that's not all. They were afraid of the mermaids who bewitched sailors. A renowned wise man was convinced of the existence of a giant octopus with tentacles 9 meters long, able to sink ships. Sailors believed in all these extraordinary sea monsters until the 17th century. In fact, take a look at a map from back then. It seems they were terrified of whales as well. Let's just listen to how one of the leaders at the time actually described these charming creatures.
A gigantic, terrifying mass moved towards us. A real mountain.
But what does it look like, this whale?
Its enormous jaw bristled with 2 rows of teeth worthy of the most savage carnivores. Each of its eyes, instead of lashes, had 250 horns, which it lowered like a porcupine about to charge its prey. And when its red gaze pierces you,
People started hunting whales just a couple of centuries ago, but with very basic weapons. Look at these guys.
Yeah, they didn't have drift nets or factory boats or powerful, accurate harpoons, so they...
And what were you saying earlier, Petra, about whales facing extinction is the same for dolphins, too? This beautiful and intelligent animal is also under threat. Each year, drift nets pulled by large trawlers trap about 8% of their population. From 100,000 20 years ago, there are only a few thousand left.
And what Sophie's saying isn't only true of whales or dolphins. It also goes for all large fish. Sharks, bluefin tuna, and sturgeon and cod. They all get trapped in those drift nets.
All 3 of you are right, but didn't you know that drift nets have been banned?
Yes, Maestro, but only for catching tuna and swordfish, and that's not enough.
Well, I know of one way how we could avoid wasting sea products. Just listen. Okay, 300 billion tons of plant plankton are eaten each year by animal plankton, which is consumed by millions of shrimp or krill, which are then eaten by small or larger fish. This produces 3 to 4 million tons of fish to be caught, 100,000 times less than the original material. If we decided to catch just a small part of these shrimps, we'd all get enough protein, and it wouldn't affect their population or placement capacity. What do you think, Maestro?
Well, it would use but a small part of the food chain of the ocean's inhabitants and wouldn't really have much effect on them, and so it's a very good idea.
You've already mentioned the new regulations on drift nets to us, Maestro. But are these rules obeyed?
Oh, well, let's say they are sometime. Always? No one can be sure. And we just don't have the resources to run checks everywhere.
How do we expect the fish to have any chance when you see the size of these monsters?
And do you know that even using these huge boats, nowadays the amount fished has hardly increased because the seas can't handle it anymore. Just think, in 50 years, we've gone from 20 to more than 100 million tons of fish caught annually. So naturally, the seas are being emptied. Here's an idea. How about you pay a visit to this state-of-the-art trawler? You'll be able to see firsthand its fishing methods, and we'll get lots of material for a fascinating report. What do you think? A good idea? Go get ready and then come next door. In the meantime, I'll get ready. Come on, then. They're waiting for us. The skipper knows what to do.
Oh, it's huge!
Welcome aboard.
Now this is a vessel, not like the little canoe we came over on. Wow, just look at that kit. Amazing.
So, kids, you want to learn a thing or two? Well, come on, I'll show you. The bridge should interest you. Impressive, isn't it?
What's that?
That's our sonar. It sends out waves and picks up the echoes, showing us any obstacle or shoals of fish.
And where's the transmitter then?
In the bows under the ship.
All right. It's the same technique used in any conflict by warships to detect submarines.
Now, that's our satellite link.
There's a major shoal 12 miles northeast. It should be visible on your screen right now.
But this information... where's it coming from?
Well, from the chopper, of course. It helps us to locate fish beds.
It's all too easy. This isn't fishing you're doing here. It's industrial processing of living beings threatened with extinction, and which has no chance of survival.
Now, that...
All this precision. And wow, the technology. You must catch so many fish from this boat then.
Up to 30 tons in one haul. 100 tons a trip. Come along with me and I'll show you right now.
But that net is gigantic.
60 kilometers long. But don't tell anyone, right? It's as wide as a country, or almost 3 times as long as Manhattan. And wait till you see the catch.
Look out! Watch out! You've caught 3 dolphins!
Problem?
You must open the net and let the dolphins go.
Absolutely!
There's no way I'm going to open my net for you. Half my hard-earned catch would disappear.
You're gonna release those dolphins right now.
Yes.
Not only are they a protected species, but you're also fishing with oversized nets and too small a mesh size, which is banned. You're pointlessly slaughtering all these little fish that could become food for everyone tomorrow.
Just who do you think you are preaching at me? Who are you, you little upstart? What do you think you're achieving?
We are the people who are gonna have to live with the world you leave us with.
What? Huh?
We're the guardians of the planet, looking after this planet that you and those like you are helping to destroy.
Okay. Open the nets and release the dolphins. Come on, get a move on.
Yes, sir.
Oh, great! And that's how we slaughter what the sea produces. 40 to 50% of catches are thrown away, so they won't be able to grow nor reproduce.
Yeah, but what can you do, huh?
What can we do? Well, to start, we must fight in order to get a reasonable size for nets and with a larger mesh, so that small fish can escape. And above all, we have to reduce the number of ships and the quantities they catch.
But all those measures have been introduced, and as you can see, they're not obeyed at all.
Even the small fishermen don't agree with the quota system, and that's understandable. Their families depend on their catch.
But we're also fighting so they can carry on fishing in the future. If we don't, there'll be nothing left to catch.
Yes, the sea adjusts temperatures on land, absorbs half the carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere, feeds humankind, and in return, we spoil it and plunder it. 800 rigs are bringing up oil from the sea worldwide. The tides and waves can produce energy. Aquaculture could supply us with 50% of our needs in fish. And there are millions of tons of deposits of valuable metals like manganese, cobalt, copper, and nickel covering the deeper seabeds, which we can now reach.
And unsustainable fishing, Maestro? Do you agree with our agenda?
I believe you're right on track. To reduce the size of the nets, to increase space between their mesh, and to reduce the allowed fished quantities, one can only agree. We should remember that there are standards that guarantee fair fishing. Just look for the labels and choose them whenever you can. As for the rest, demanding that the fishing industry stops catching more than the sea can produce would be common sense, wouldn't it?